The Galactic Council thought they understood war. Then a human regular soldier walked into the chamber, and the oldest species in the galaxy felt fear for the first time in their history. No one spoke when the human delegation entered the Hall of Accord. The chamber was enormous, carved from dark crystal and orbiting a dead star. Representatives from 63 species floated, stood, or rested in gravity fields designed for their bodies. This place had witnessed war's end and civilization's rise. It had never known silence like this. Because humans were here. At the center platform stood Ambassador Elira Von of the Aurelian Concord. Her golden eyes followed the humans carefully. Two wore diplomatic attire, soft fabric, neutral colors. They smiled. They bowed. They looked harmless. The third human did not smile. He stood still, hands behind his back, wearing a plain gray uniform. No medals. No visible weapons. His posture was relaxed, but not careless. His eyes moved slowly, always watching. Elira felt something tighten in her chest. She had negotiated with conquerors and genocidal species. She had stared down warlords who fed on fear. None of them made her feel like this human did. "Welcome," Elira said, her voice steady. "Earth has requested provisional membership within the Galactic Council. As per law, your defensive capabilities must be disclosed." The female diplomat nodded. "Of course. Transparency builds trust." The grey-uniformed human remained silent. Councillor Threx of the Val Dominion leaned forward, his chitin clicking. "You have sent only one military representative." "Yes," the diplomat replied. "This is Warrant Officer Daniel Cade. He represents our ground forces." Threx's mandibles twitched in amusement. "One officer. Not even your elite warriors." Cade spoke before the diplomat could respond. "I'm not elite." His voice was calm, flat, honest. A ripple of confusion spread through the chamber. Elira tilted her head. "You are not special forces." "No, Cade said. "I'm a regular." Several council members exchanged glances. Councillor Sarun, a species that required 12 hours of rest daily, raised a trembling limb. "Then why send you?" Cade shrugged slightly. "Because you asked about soldiers." Threx laughed, a sharp, echoing sound. "Very well, human regular. Tell us about your army." Cade nodded once. "Earth maintains approximately 12 million active soldiers." The chamber stirred. "That is a planetary invasion force," Sarun whispered. Cade continued. "Most of them are regulars like me." Elira felt her pulse quicken. "How long do humans train for combat?" "Basic training? About 3 months." The chamber erupted. "Impossible. Unacceptable. Primitive." Cade waited for silence. 3 months teaches survival, teamwork, discipline," he said. "Training never stops after that." Threx narrowed his eyes. "How long before a soldier is considered expendable?" Cade's gaze hardened, not with anger, but with certainty. "No soldier is expendable." That answer unsettled Elira more than any statistic. Councillor Sarun asked quietly, "How do your soldiers handle environmental stress?" Cade answered without hesitation. "Heat. Cold. Vacuum. Radiation exposure. Sleep deprivation. Hunger." Sarun recoiled. "Sleep deprivation is fatal." "Eventually," Cade agreed. "But not immediately." Elira felt the room shift. Fear did not come from numbers. It came from endurance. "And you," Elira asked slowly, "how long have you served?" 21 years. Murmurs spread again. "How many conflicts?" Threx demanded. 8. "How many times injured?" Cade paused. "Lost count. Officially, 13. Sarun's breathing apparatus hissed erratically. "You continue to fight after injury?" "Yes." "Why?" Cade met Elira's eyes. "Because quitting doesn't stop the mission." Silence returned, heavy and absolute. Elira swallowed. Then tell us about your special forces. The diplomats stiffened. Cade's jaw tightened slightly. They exist to do what we can't. And what can't you do? Threx asked. Cade exhaled slowly. Disappear completely. End wars before they start. Break enemies without battles. Elira felt cold. If you are only regular infantry, she said, voice barely controlled, why does the council feel fear? Cade thought for a moment. Then he said, because if regular people like me can do this, you're imagining what the worst of us can do. The session ended early. No one argued. Later, alone at the viewport, Elira watched Earth rotate slowly beneath them. A small blue world. Loud. Violent. Alive. She activated a private channel. Record this, she said. Humanity must never be provoked. If conflict ever comes, pray they send only their regular soldiers. Far away, on a transport ship drifting silently toward council space, 300 human infantry prepared for their next assignment. None of them were special forces. And the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. The Galactic Council called it a security operation. The humans called it a cleanup. That difference in language was the first warning sign. Ambassador Elira Von stood inside the observation bay of the council cruiser, watching the tactical map float in the air. Red dots marked raider ships, hidden stations, and smuggling tunnels across the Karen Belt, a cold ring of shattered moons and dead rocks that surrounded a gas giant like a broken crown. For 6 years, the Karen Belt had bled trade routes dry. Caravans vanished. Mining crews disappeared. Council patrol fleets entered the belt and came back broken, or didn't come back at all. Raiders used the rocks like a maze, slipping behind sensors, striking fast, and vanishing again. Councillor Threx was there, claws folded behind his back. His confidence from the meeting hall had faded into tight silence. They have over 40,000 fighters, Threx muttered, almost to himself. And you sent 300 humans. Across the room, the human liaison, Major Lynn Marrow, studied the map like she was reviewing a weather report. She wore the same plain grey uniform as Warrant Officer Cade. No medals. No bravado. Just calm. 300 is enough, Marrow said. Elira tried to keep her voice diplomatic. Major, the council assumed you would deploy special forces. Marrow glanced at her. For pirates? No. Threx's mandibles clicked with irritation. Do humans not respect the threat? Marrow's expression didn't change. We respect the problem. That's why we brought regulars. Regulars are what solve problems. Elira felt that same tightness in her chest again. A door hissed open. Warrant Officer Daniel Cade entered with his platoon leaders. Behind him were men and women of different skin tones, heights, and builds. They carried helmets under their arms and wore standard combat suits. Their faces were ordinary. That was what scared Elira. Ordinary people didn't walk into nightmare zones with relaxed shoulders. Cade stopped at the central console. Major, we're ready. Marrow nodded. Council observers are present. Keep comms clean. Cade turned slightly toward Elira and Threx. You'll be listening live. Elira forced herself to hold his gaze. Yes. Cade gave a small nod, like that was expected. Then he looked at the tactical map. Belt's dense, he said. Sensors jammed. They're hiding inside hollow rocks and old rigs. Threx leaned forward. Exactly. Every fleet we sent was detected before they could even approach. Cade pointed to a cluster of asteroids. Because fleets glow. Engines. Heat. Power. Radios. You look like a parade in the dark. Elira frowned. Then how will you approach undetected? Cade's answer was simple. We won't approach. We'll already be there. Threx stiffened. Explain. Marrow took over. Phase 1 happened 12 hours ago. Elira blinked. 12 hours ago. Marrow tapped a control. The map shifted. Tiny blue dots appeared across the belt, scattered like seeds. Elira's throat went dry. Those are human units. Pods, Marrow corrected. 10 soldiers per pod. No engines. No transmissions. Just mass and math. Threx's voice sharpened. You launched soldiers into an asteroid belt, without ships. Cade spoke again, calm as stone. We dropped them from far outside the belt. They coasted in. Cold and quiet. Raiders don't notice what doesn't burn. Threx turned slightly green, a sign of nausea in his species. Elira whispered, they were in total darkness for 12 hours. Yes, Cade said. That's normal. Normal. That word hit Elira like a hammer. A new voice came through the comm system. Crisp. Focused. Pod 7, in position. Pod 12, in position. Pod 30, eyes on relay tower. Elira stared as the belt's red defenses were quietly surrounded by blue dots. The raiders had no idea. Marrow's gaze stayed on the map. Phase 2 begins on Colonel's mark. Colonel? Elira asked. Cade looked at her. Colonel Rhea Soto. She's leading this. Another human entered the bay. Tall, older, haircut close, eyes sharp. Colonel Soto didn't waste time greeting anyone. She approached the console like it belonged to her. Counselors, she said, voice firm. You will observe. You will not interfere. Threx bristled. This is a council operation. You are guests. Soto's eyes flicked to him. Not hostile. Just fact. Then you should be grateful your guests are doing the hard part. Threx fell silent. Soto turned to Cade. All units ready. Cade pressed his comm, all pods green. Soto nodded once. Then her voice dropped slightly. Execute. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the Karen belt lit up. A raider fuel depot exploded from inside a hollow asteroid, erupting into fire that had no right to exist in the vacuum of space. The blast threw debris like shrapnel. Sensors spiked. Alarms screamed. Then another explosion. Then 3 more. The observation bay filled with noise as intercepted raider channels burst into chaos. Where are they? Internal breach. Something's inside the rock, inside the rock. Shut the relays down, shut them down. Elira watched the tactical map. Raider red dots started moving wildly, scattering like insects in a storm. The blue dots moved with purpose. One blue dot approached a red marker, then the red marker vanished. Another blue dot drifted behind a patrol ship and latched onto it. The patrol ship went dark. Threx's voice cracked. How are they doing this without ships? Marrow didn't look away from the map. Thruster packs. Short bursts. They hide behind rocks. They go silent. They move like they belong in the belt. Elira's hands trembled. But their bodies, exposure, radiation. Cade answered without pride, without drama. They are suited. They are trained. They are disciplined. Soto leaned forward, listening to the battle like a musician listening to music. A human voice on comms spoke fast. Contact. 2 hostiles. Taking them quiet. Elira swallowed. Quiet. Cade didn't blink. No gunfire. Threx stepped back. What does that mean? The answer came through the comms, casual and chilling. Targets secured. No alerts. Elira stared at Cade. They're capturing raiders by hand. Cade nodded. If you shoot, you announce yourself. Soto spoke into comms. Team 9, status. Inside Station 1. They've got prisoners, civilian miners. Looks bad. Elira's breath caught. There are hostages. Threx's mandibles trembled. The council never confirmed that. Soto's jaw tightened. Of course there are hostages. There are always hostages. Her tone wasn't angry. It was experienced. The map zoomed in. Station 1 was an old mining platform welded into a cluster of rocks. It had guns mounted like thorns. Human teams were already on it. Elira heard breathing on comms. The sound of bodies moving through tight spaces. Then a whisper. Doors sealed. Another whisper. Cutting through. Elira leaned closer. They're breaching a station that holds civilians. Threx hissed. That is reckless. One mistake and the prisoners die. Cade's eyes stayed on the map. We know. Elira turned to him sharply. Then why proceed? Cade finally looked at her fully. Because if we wait, they die anyway. The comms turned violent. A burst of static. A shout in an alien language. A short, sharp human command. Down. Then silence, 3 seconds long. Elira's heart hammered. Threx looked like he might faint. Then a human voice spoke, steady but intense. Hostages secure. Repeat. Hostages secure. Elira exhaled so hard she almost collapsed. Soto didn't relax. Count. 32 civilians alive. 4 critical injuries. Medics on them. Elira's eyes widened. They brought medics into the assault. Cade nodded. Regulars do that. The battle spread like fire across the belt. Human teams destroyed relays, jammed raider comms, seized fuel, cut escape routes. Instead of chasing raiders, they took away the raiders' ability to run. The raiders were not fighting an army. They were fighting inevitability. Hours passed. Raider transmissions turned from confusion to panic to pure terror. They are in the walls. They're not using ships. How do you shoot something you can't see? Elira realized something horrifying. The raiders had built their whole strategy around one assumption. That enemies needed ships. Humans had removed that assumption. A raider commander screamed into the open channel, voice breaking. Who are you people? Cade's platoon leader answered calmly, almost kindly. Just regular infantry. The raider screamed again, like that was the worst answer possible. Threx stared at the map, his face hollow. If these are regulars. Elira finished his sentence in her mind. What did special forces look like? The comms crackled. A new alert appeared on the map, deep in the belt, beyond the known bases. A hidden station powered up. Massive. Old. Armed. Soto's eyes narrowed. That wasn't on the intel, Marrow said. Cade's voice turned slightly sharper. It's waking up. The station's signature expanded, lighting up the map like a monster opening one eye. Then it transmitted a single message across all channels, Council, Raider, and human alike. A cold, synthetic voice spoke in perfect galactic common. Unauthorized presence detected. Activating ancient defense protocol. Elira's blood ran cold. Ancient defense protocol meant one thing. Something from the old wars. Something the Council didn't even fully understand. Threx backed away in horror. That station, that design. Marrow's face tightened. Colonel. That's not pirate tech. Soto's voice stayed steady, but the room felt heavier. Everyone listen, she said. That's not a raider base. Cade stared at the map. Then he spoke softly, like he was realizing it at the same time. That's a tomb. And the tomb had just awakened. The ancient station moved. Not fast. Not violently. It rotated. That alone sent a wave of unease through every observer in the Council cruiser. The structure was massive, far larger than any raider base, its surface scarred by micrometeor impacts that suggested extreme age. Sections of it had fused with surrounding asteroids, as if the belt itself had grown around it over millennia. Ambassador Elira Von felt her stomach drop. That station predates the Council, she whispered. Councillor Threx's mandibles clicked in panic. Those markings, they belong to the first builders. A hush fell across the observation bay. The first builders were not myth, but they were close. A civilization so old that their ruins were older than most stars' current configurations. They had fought wars that reshaped systems. Entire species had vanished in their wake. And this was one of their weapons. The station's surface plates shifted, revealing deep internal lights, dim, red, and waking. Colonel Rhea Soto didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "All units," she said, "status check." Human voices answered immediately. Alpha team intact. Bravo green. Civilians evacuated. Hostiles retreating. Elira noticed something terrifying. Not a single human sounded panicked. The station broadcast again, louder now. Defense network online. External organics identified. Threat level, moderate. Threx staggered back. Moderate? That thing erased fleets in the ancient wars. Major Marrow turned to him. "It's evaluating us." The station sensors swept across the belt. Raider ships were caught in the scan. Threat level updated, irrelevant. A beam of light erupted from the station. One moment, a raider cruiser existed. The next, it didn't. It didn't explode. It didn't break apart. It simply stopped being there. Elira screamed. Threx collapsed onto his support frame. The station rotated again, lining up with the Council cruiser's distant position. Threat level updated. Unknown observers detected. Soto's jaw tightened. "Cade," she said. "Options." Cade stared at the map. His voice stayed steady, but Elira could hear tension now. "That thing's power output is beyond our heavy ships. We can't outgun it." Marrow added, "And if it finishes scanning, it'll identify the cruiser." Threx shrieked. "Then we must retreat immediately." Soto shook her head. "If it locks onto you in transit, it'll follow." Elira's mind raced. "Then what do we do?" Soto didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at the blue dots on the map, human soldiers still inside the belt. "Regular soldiers. They're already inside its blind spots," Soto said. "And it's old." Marrow caught on instantly. Old systems mean old assumptions. Cade's eyes narrowed. "It expects ships. Big ones." Soto nodded. "It doesn't expect people." She opened a channel. "All ground units, listen carefully. New objective." Human voices answered without hesitation. "Send it." "That station is a first builder defense node. It's autonomous. No crew. We believe its core is buried deep inside." Cade's platoon leader responded. "So, we walk in." "Yes," Soto said. "And you shut it down." There was a brief pause. Then a voice, young, calm, almost amused. "Roger that. Guess we're going dungeon diving." Elira stared. "You're sending soldiers into that thing?" Cade glanced at her. "They volunteered." "Volunteered." Threx croaked. "They always do," Cade said. The station fired again, another beam, slicing through empty space where a human pod had been seconds earlier. "Threat level increasing," the station intoned. "Countermeasures deploying." Dozens of mechanical drones detached from its surface, unfolding like metal insects. Soto spoke fast. "Move now. Before it adapts." Human teams moved. Elira watched in disbelief as blue dots accelerated, not toward safety, but toward the ancient weapon. Those drones armed with energy weapons. Threx shouted. Marrow replied, "So are our soldiers." The first drone engaged a human squad. Energy fire lit the darkness. A human voice grunted in pain. Then another voice cut in instantly. "You're good. Stay with me." The drone vanished from the map. The humans weren't retreating. They were advancing. Cade spoke quietly. "The station's targeting algorithms are predictive. It calculates movement patterns." Elira nodded shakily. So our soldiers started moving randomly 5 minutes ago." Threx stared. "Random movement is inefficient." Cade met his gaze. For machines, yes. Human squads zigzagged, bounced off asteroids, reversed directions suddenly. Drones overshot, recalculated, and died. The station rotated faster now. Anomalous behavior detected, it announced. Updating response models. Soto's lips pressed thin. It's learning. Then we hurry, Cade said. A human voice crackled through comms, breath heavy. Found an access seam. Looks like maintenance. Of course it does, Marrow muttered. Ancient or not, everything needs maintenance. The humans breached. Elira felt her hands go numb as interior scans appeared. The inside of the station was vast, corridors like cathedral halls, walls etched with symbols older than recorded language. The temperature dropped. Radiation spiked. Levels are lethal, Threx gasped. Cade checked data. For most species. Human squads moved deeper. One soldier stumbled. Another grabbed them instantly. No one falls behind, a voice said. The station reacted. Interior defenses activated. Walls shifted, gravity flipped, floors dissolved into nothingness. A human screamed as gravity inverted and they slammed into a ceiling. Status. Soto barked. Alive, came the strained reply. Think I broke something. Can you move? A pause. Yes. Then keep moving. Elira felt tears sting her eyes. These weren't machines. They weren't heroes carved from myth. They were people. Bleeding. Afraid. Still moving. The station spoke again, voice colder. Organic adaptation confirmed. Threat level, high. Threx whispered, it's afraid of them. Cade didn't deny it. Inside the core chamber, the humans found it, a massive crystalline structure suspended in energy fields. Symbols pulsed across its surface, rewriting themselves in response to human presence. It's thinking, one soldier said. It's calculating us, another replied. Soto's voice was calm but urgent. Can you access the core? A pause. Then, yes. Elira's heart stopped. How? The soldier's answer was simple. There's a panel. They never armored it. Probably assumed no one would reach it. Marrow laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. Arrogance. Even ancient ones had it. The station sensed the breach. Core integrity compromised, it intoned. Initiating purge. Energy surged. The chamber began to collapse. Timer's on, a human shouted. Cade clenched his fists. How long? 2 minutes. Soto didn't hesitate. Do what you can. Inside the station, a human technician stared at alien code that made no sense. So he stopped trying to understand it. He cut power. Literally. He pulled a cable. The lights went out. The station froze. Every drone went dark. The massive structure stopped rotating. Then, slowly, it went silent. The tactical map blinked. The red monster vanished. Elira collapsed into a chair. Threx stared at the void. They turned it off. Cade exhaled for the first time in minutes. But then a new alert appeared. Internal sensors flared. Radiation levels spiked again. The station was failing. Colonel, a human voice said urgently. We shut it down, but it's unstable. Soto's voice hardened. Can you get out? A pause. Not in time. Elira's breath caught in her throat. The soldier continued, voice steady but quiet. We'll hold it. Buy you time. Elira stood. No. Soto closed her eyes for half a second. Then she spoke. Do what you can. We'll remember. The station began to collapse in on itself, ancient energies tearing it apart. Human squads ran. Some didn't make it. The council cruiser jumped to hyperspace just as the tomb detonated, wiping the heart of the Karen belt clean. Silence followed. When the cruiser emerged, the belt was gone. So was the station. So were several blue dots. Elira stared at the empty map, tears streaming freely now. They died, she whispered. Cade's voice was rough. Yes. Threx shook uncontrollably. And they were only regulars. Cade closed his eyes. Yes. But then a new transmission appeared. Weak. Fragmented. Anyone, copy. Elira's head snapped up. This is Squad Echo. We found a pocket, radiation shielded, still alive. Elira laughed and cried at the same time. Cade's eyes opened. See, he said softly. We endure. The silence after the explosion lasted longer than anyone expected. The Karen belt was gone. Where thousands of asteroids had once drifted in chaotic beauty, there was now a vast, empty scar in space, dust, radiation, and fading echoes of energies older than memory. Ambassador Elira Von stood frozen before the tactical display. Blue dots were gone. Red dots were gone. Only emptiness remained. Behind her, the council chamber aboard the cruiser was filled with representatives who had forgotten how to speak. Councillor Threx finally broke the silence. His voice was hoarse, stripped of arrogance and certainty. They sacrificed themselves, without hesitation. Colonel Rhea Soto remained standing, hands clasped behind her back. Her face showed no triumph. Only weight. They followed orders, she said. And each other. Elira turned to her. You knew some of them wouldn't return. Soto met her gaze. Yes. How can you send people into that? Elira demanded, emotion cracking her voice. Knowing they might die. Soto answered quietly. Because they already volunteered to protect others long before this mission. The words settled heavily over the room. Major Lynn Marrow stepped forward, holding a datapad. We're receiving long-range scans. Radar activity has collapsed completely. No command structure. No coordination. Survivors are surrendering or fleeing the system. Threx lowered himself into his support frame, stunned. 300 soldiers, dismantled a force that defeated entire fleets. Cade stood near the viewport, watching the empty space where the tomb had been. They weren't fighting us, he said. They were hiding behind fear. Fear only works until someone walks straight through it. Elira studied him carefully. You speak as if this outcome was inevitable. Cade nodded once. It was. The council convened within the hour. Emergency protocols were activated across multiple systems. Trade routes reopened. Distress calls stopped. For the first time in years, the outer colonies breathed freely. But relief was not the dominant emotion spreading through the Galactic Council. It was realization. Councillor Saran spoke during the session, their voice trembling through their translator. We believed humanity was dangerous because of its weapons. Elira continued for them. But the truth is worse. And better. All eyes turned to her. Humans are dangerous because they don't see impossibility the same way we do. A projection appeared at the center of the chamber. It showed recordings from inside the ancient station. Human soldiers moving through collapsing corridors, dragging wounded comrades, improvising tools, laughing under pressure. Laughing. Threx stared at the images. Why are they laughing? Marrow answered. Stress response. Humor keeps fear from taking control. Fear should control you, Saran whispered. Cade shook his head. Fear is information, not a command. That statement was recorded and archived. It would be quoted for centuries. The recovered soldiers from Squad Echo were brought aboard the cruiser 2 days later. Their armor was scorched. Their faces were pale. One walked with a limp. Another had burns along one arm. They smiled anyway. Elira met them personally. You should not be alive, she said softly. One of the soldiers shrugged. Probably. Why keep going? She asked. After everything. The soldier thought for a moment. Because stopping didn't help anyone. Elira had no response to that. Across the galaxy, reactions spread fast. Some species demanded restrictions on human military presence. Others requested joint training programs. A few quietly asked for defense treaties that placed humans on their borders. And some, very quietly, began researching how to defend themselves from humans. The Council issued an official report 3 weeks later. It avoided emotional language. It used calm, diplomatic phrasing. But the conclusion was unmistakable. Humanity does not rely on superiority of technology alone. Humanity relies on adaptability, cooperation, and refusal to accept failure. In prolonged conflict, humanity demonstrates exponential resilience. Unofficially, another conclusion circulated among senior counselors. Never fight humans unless extinction is acceptable. Ambassador Elira requested a private meeting with Colonel Soto and Warrant Officer Cade before the humans departed council space. They met in a small observation lounge overlooking a star nursery, young suns forming from glowing clouds. "You saved millions of lives," Elira said. "The council owes you a debt that cannot be repaid." Soto inclined her head. "Then don't repay it. Just remember it." Elira hesitated. "There is something I must ask. For the sake of the galaxy." Cade folded his hands behind his back, mirroring Soto's posture. Elira took a breath. "What would have happened if you had sent your special forces?" Cade and Soto exchanged a brief glance. Then Soto answered. "There wouldn't have been a battle." Elira frowned. "Explain." Soto's voice remained calm. The raiders' leadership would have vanished. The ancient station would never have activated. The system would have gone quiet without anyone knowing why. "That sounds efficient," Elira said. "It is," Cade replied. "And terrifying. Which is why we didn't use them." Elira's eyes widened slightly. "You held back, on purpose." "Yes," Soto said. "Because this wasn't about domination. It was about stability." Elira felt a chill run through her entire body. "You chose restraint," she said slowly. "And this is what restraint looks like." Cade nodded. "Exactly." When the human ships departed, the council watched them leave in silence. No cheering. No celebration. Only understanding. Weeks later, Elira stood again at the viewport of the Hall of Accord. The stars looked different now. Less distant. Less abstract. She activated a personal log. "Humanity has joined the Galactic Council," she recorded. "Not as conquerors. Not as saviors. But as a force shaped by endurance." She paused. "We feared their special forces. We were wrong." She looked out at the stars. "We should have feared the regular ones. Because they are everywhere. And they will keep going." Far away, on Earth, factories rebuilt damaged equipment. Schools trained new medics. Soldiers returned home, hugged families, and began preparing for the next mission. Not because they loved war, but because someone had to stand where others couldn't. And they were willing to be those people. The galaxy had learned a lesson. Humanity was not unstoppable. Humanity was unyielding. And that was far more dangerous. The galaxy did not celebrate the end of the Karen crisis. There were no festivals, no great speeches, no monuments carved into asteroids. The silence that followed was heavier than any applause. Entire sectors simply breathed again. Ships traveled without escorts. Colonies slept without alarms. Trade lanes reopened like old wounds finally allowed to heal. And everywhere, the same quiet question spread. What happens now that humans are here? Ambassador Elira Von felt that question every day. She stood before the High Assembly of the Galactic Council, the oldest continuous governing body in known space. Around her were beings who had lived for centuries, some for millennia. They had survived wars, plagues, collapses, and extinctions. None of those memories frightened them the way humanity did. The chamber lights dimmed as Elira began her final report. The Karen belt is neutralized. Raider activity across 12 neighboring systems has dropped to near zero. No human occupation forces remain. No demands were made. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Councillor Threx rose slowly. His posture was no longer proud. It was careful. "Ambassador," he said, "why did the humans leave?" Elira answered honestly. "Because the mission was complete." "That is not how powerful species behave," Sarun said quietly. "They stay. They claim. They expand." Elira nodded. "Humans expand differently." She gestured, and a projection appeared, footage from Earth. Humans rebuilding damaged ships alongside non-human engineers. Human medics training alien doctors. Human soldiers removing armor to help rebuild settlements they had never seen before the mission. "They fight," Elira said, "so they don't have to rule." The chamber fell silent again. A junior council member, young, barely a century old, spoke with hesitation. "What if, one day, they choose to rule?" That was the question no one wanted to ask. Elira did not soften her answer. "Then the galaxy will not stop them." Fear rippled openly now. "But," she continued, "that fear misunderstands humanity." She changed the projection again. This time, it showed funerals on Earth. Rows of humans standing silently. Flags folded. Names read aloud. Families holding each other. "These are the soldiers who did not return," Elira said softly. "They are not forgotten. They are mourned. Deeply." Threx leaned forward. "Why does that matter?" "Because a species that mourns its warriors does not seek endless war," Elira replied. "A species that remembers its dead fights only when it believes there is no other choice." That truth struck harder than any weapon. Far from council space, on a quiet human colony world, Warrant Officer Daniel Cade sat on a wooden bench overlooking an ocean. His arm was in a sling. The waves rolled in slow, endless rhythm. Colonel Rhea Soto stood beside him. "Council's debating long-term policy," she said. "Some want restrictions. Others want alliances." Cade snorted softly. "Figures." "You okay?" Soto asked. Cade nodded. "Lost friends. Saved strangers. Same as always." Soto studied him. "You ever wish we'd sent special forces?" Cade didn't answer right away. Then he said, "No." "Why?" "Because the galaxy needed to see this," he replied. "Not what we can do. What we choose to do." Soto smiled faintly. "Regulars made the point." "Regulars always do." Back on the council station, Elira concluded her address. "The humans labeled some of their soldiers special forces," she said. "Elite. Exceptional. Rare." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "But what the Karen crisis revealed is this: humanity's true strength is not in its exceptions." She looked around the chamber, meeting every gaze. "It is in its normality. In ordinary people who endure fear, pain, and loss, and continue anyway." The council voted that day. Humanity was granted full membership. Not because of its power, but because of its restraint. Years passed. Human traders became common sights in distant systems. Human engineers helped repair ancient infrastructure. Human teachers shared knowledge freely, and learned just as eagerly in return. Conflicts still happened. Disputes still flared. But when situations became truly hopeless, a familiar phrase began appearing in council deliberations. Request human assistance. Never human domination. Never human enforcement. Assistance. And always, always, the same quiet prayer followed in private chambers and personal logs. Let them come as friends. Because the council now understood something fundamental. If humans ever came as enemies, no ancient weapon, no grand alliance, no advanced technology would be enough. Not because humans were cruel, but because they were stubborn. Because they adapted. Because they refused to stop. Because even their regular people could walk into darkness and reshape it with their hands. Ambassador Elira Von retired decades later. On her final day, she stood once more at the great viewing window, watching the stars drift by. A young aide asked her, Do you still fear humanity? Elira considered the question carefully. Yes, she said at last. But not the way I once did. How so? I fear disappointing them, Elira replied. I fear giving them a reason to fight. She smiled faintly. Because if the day ever comes when humans believe the galaxy cannot be saved peacefully, then the galaxy will learn what special forces were truly meant to prevent. The aide swallowed. And far away, on Earth, children learned stories of stars and strange worlds. Some would grow up to be artists, some scientists, some farmers, and some, just some, would become soldiers. Regular soldiers. The kind the galaxy prayed it would never have to face. The end.